under the vast, silent canvas of the New Mexico sky, where stars glitter like scattered diamonds, lies a profound mystery etched into the earth. Here, in the stark, moon-drenched beauty of the desert, the wind whispers tales of a time long past. This is Chaco Canyon, a place that seems, at first glance, to be an unforgiving expanse of rock and sand. But look closer, listen deeper. This was once the heart of a civilization, a bustling metropolis of stone and spirit that flourished against all odds. Imagine, 1,000 years ago, this quiet canyon teeming with life. Thousands of people called this place home. They built magnificent structures, great houses that reached for the sky, aligned with the sun and moon with breathtaking precision. Their society was complex, their reach extensive, their culture rich and vibrant. They engineered roads that stretched 4 miles, connecting their world in a way few ancient cultures did. This wasn't just a settlement, it was the center of a world. And then, silence. They vanished. The great houses fell quiet, the plazas emptied, and the roads faded back into the desert. The story of the people who thrived here seems to dissolve into the very sand that now fills their homes. Who were these master builders? These astronomers? These desert dwellers? What was the true purpose of their monumental city? And the most haunting question of all: why did they leave? What could compel an entire civilization to abandon a home they had spent centuries building? This is not just a story of ruins. It's a human story of ingenuity, faith, and survival in one of the planet's most challenging landscapes. The clues they left behind are scattered, cryptic, and endlessly fascinating. In their pottery, their art, and the very alignment of their buildings, we find echoes of their voices, hints of their beliefs, and fragments of their epic journey. They didn't have a written language as we know it, so their legacy is told through stone, stars, and the enduring spirit of this sacred place. Join us as we step back in time. Under these same desert stars that guided them, we will journey through the silent corridors of Pueblo Bonito, Chaco Canyon, and the other great houses, piecing together the puzzle of the Chaco people. We'll consult with archaeologists who have dedicated their lives to uncovering these secrets, and with the modern Pueblo descendants who hold the oral traditions and spiritual connection to this ancestral land. Together, we will explore the theories that attempt to explain their rise and fall. Was it a devastating drought that starved their crops and dried their wells? Was it internal conflict, a society collapsing under its own weight? Or was it something else entirely, a spiritual calling, a prophesied migration, a deliberate choice to move on and begin anew elsewhere? The canyon holds its secrets tightly, but it also offers glimpses of the truth to those who are willing to look. The scale of their achievement is staggering. They quarried and transported millions of sandstone blocks, moving massive timbers over 60 miles from distant mountains, all without the aid of wheels or beasts of burden. This was an act of collective will, a testament to a shared vision that we are still trying to comprehend. What inspired such monumental effort? Was it for ceremony, for trade, or for a purpose we haven't even begun to imagine? As we walk through these grand, empty rooms, it's impossible not to feel a sense of awe and connection. You can almost hear the echoes of children laughing in the plaza, the murmur of voices in the kivas, the rhythmic grinding of corn. This place is not dead. It's sleeping, waiting for its story to be told once more. It's a story that challenges our understanding of what it means to build a society, to live in harmony with the environment, and to face the inevitable currents of change. The mystery of Chaco Canyon is more than just an archaeological puzzle. It's a mirror reflecting our own civilization. It reminds us that even the greatest cities can be reclaimed by nature, that societies are fragile, and that the pull of home is a powerful, timeless force. The story of these ancient people is a profound part of America's hidden history, a chapter that deserves to be known and honored. So, let the journey begin. Let the stones speak, and let the stars guide our way as we seek to understand the lost world of Chaco Canyon. It is a quest that takes us deep into the heart of the American Southwest, and even deeper into the heart of the human spirit. Thank you for joining us on this exploration. If you're captivated by the mysteries of the past, be sure to subscribe to our channel, and click the notification bell so you won't miss our next chapter. We have so much more to uncover together. Have you ever wondered what a place looked like long before it became a landmark of history? Today, we're journeying back in time. Not just centuries, but millennia. We're going to explore Chaco Canyon as it was asterisk before asterisk. The first stones of its great houses were ever laid. Forget the iconic ruins for a moment, and picture a land raw, untamed, and profoundly powerful. This is the story of the land itself, a character in its own right, shaping the destiny of those who would one day call it home. Let's strip away the familiar images of Pueblo Bonito and Chaco. What are we left with? A vast, high desert basin carved by the forces of wind and water over millions of years. Imagine standing under an immense, impossibly blue sky that stretches from one horizon to the other, unbroken by anything but the sharp silhouettes of distant mesas. The air is thin and crisp, carrying the scent of dust and the faint, resinous aroma of pinyon pine and juniper. The silence is profound, so deep you can almost hear the hum of the earth itself. This wasn't just an empty space waiting to be filled. It was a living, breathing environment with its own rhythm and its own rules. The geology of Chaco Canyon is the bedrock of its story. The canyon is essentially a massive channel, a wide, sandy wash flanked by imposing sandstone cliffs and mesas. These cliffs, part of the Chakra Mesa, aren't uniform. They're layered like a cake, with softer shale and mudstone alternating with harder sandstone. Over eons, water and ice worked their way into the cracks, eroding the softer layers and causing massive blocks of sandstone to break away. This process created the distinctive stepped cliffs and the piles of rockfall at their base, features that would later become both a resource and a challenge for the canyon's inhabitants. The sandstone itself, with its beautiful bands of yellow, tan, and brown, was the perfect building material, just waiting for the right hands to shape it. Now let's talk about water, the most precious and fickle resource in this arid land. The Chaco Wash, which runs through the center of the canyon, was not a constantly flowing river. For most of the year, it was a dry, sandy arroyo. But when the summer monsoons arrived, this placid wash could transform in an instant into a raging, destructive torrent. These flash floods were a double-edged sword. They brought much-needed moisture, depositing fertile silt onto the canyon floor, but they could also wipe out everything in their path with terrifying speed. Surviving here meant understanding and respecting the power of water, learning to anticipate its arrival, and finding ways to capture and control it. Early peoples would have watched the skies and the landscape with an intimacy we can barely imagine today. Their very existence, depending on reading the subtle signs of nature. The climate in this ancient period, roughly 2,000 years ago, was not exactly what we see today. It was a time of fluctuation. Paleoclimatologists, by studying tree rings and pollen deposits, have pieced together a picture of a climate that swung between periods of relative wetness and prolonged drought. Imagine a few decades where summer rains were reliable, allowing small-scale farming to flourish on the canyon floor. Then, picture a generation that saw those rains fail year after year, forcing them to rely more heavily on hunting and gathering. This climatic uncertainty was the constant backdrop to life. It would have demanded incredible resilience, adaptability, and a deep, shared knowledge of the environment. Every decision, from where to plant to where to build a shelter, was a calculated risk against the whims of the sky. So, what kind of life could this tough landscape support? It might seem sparse to us, but for those who knew where to look, the canyon was full of resources. The canyon floor and mesa tops were dotted with hardy plants. Pinyon pines offered nutritious nuts in the fall, a vital source of protein and fat. Juniper trees provided berries and wood for fire and construction. Yucca plants were a virtual supermarket, offering edible flowers and fruits, and strong fibers for making sandals, baskets, and ropes. Various grasses, Mormon tea, and saltbush also had their uses, either as food, medicine, or materials. The vegetation wasn't lush, but it was resilient and useful. And what about animal life? The canyon was a corridor for wildlife, moving between the mesas and the plains. Herds of mule deer and pronghorn would have grazed in the area, providing a crucial source of meat, hides, and bone for tools. Smaller animals were even more abundant. Rabbits, squirrels, and other rodents were a reliable food source, often hunted with snares and throwing sticks. And up above, eagles and hawks soared, their presence holding deep spiritual significance for the people who shared the sky with them. Predators like coyotes and the occasional mountain lion also roamed the landscape. A constant reminder that humans were part of a complex and sometimes dangerous food web. So we have this challenging landscape, dramatic cliffs, a fickle water source, and a demanding climate. Why on earth would anyone choose to settle here? This is the fundamental question of Chaco. The answer isn't simple, but it likely involves a combination of factors. Firstly, the canyon offered a unique form of shelter. The south-facing cliff faces absorb the sun's heat in the winter, creating warmer microclimates perfect for habitation. The rock overhangs and alcoves formed by erosion provided natural, ready-made shelters from the wind and rain. For small, mobile groups of hunter-gatherers, these alcoves were ideal base camps. Secondly, the canyon, despite its aridity, concentrated resources. Water, even if unreliable, was more accessible in the wash than on the exposed mesa tops. The periodic floods replenished the soil, creating patches of land suitable for early forms of agriculture, like growing maize, beans, and squash. The canyon was a natural funnel for game and a collection point for useful plants. In a vast, dry region, Chaco was an oasis of sorts, a place where the necessities of life, while not easy to obtain, were at least gathered together. It was a place with potential, but perhaps the most powerful draw was something less tangible. Stand in the canyon today, even with all the tourists, and you can feel it. There is a sense of place, a spiritual power that emanates from the landscape. The dramatic play of light and shadow on the canyon walls, the vastness of the sky, the stark beauty of the land. It's an awe-inspiring environment. For ancient peoples, whose spiritual world was deeply intertwined with the natural world, a place like this would have been immensely significant. It might have been seen as a center, a place where the earth and sky met, a location imbued with sacred power. This spiritual magnetism may have been the ultimate reason people were not just drawn here, but chose to stay, to invest their energy, and to eventually build one of the most astonishing cultural centers in the ancient world. Before the first stone was shaped, before the first kiva was dug, Chaco was already a powerful place. It was a land of harsh beauty and subtle abundance, a landscape that demanded respect, ingenuity, and a deep connection to the rhythms of the natural world. It was this very land that would challenge, nurture, and inspire the people who would go on to create the marvels we now come from all over the world to see. This was the stage, and the greatest act was yet to come. Thank you so much for joining me on this journey back in time. If you found this glimpse into the ancient world of Chaco Canyon fascinating, please hit that like button and subscribe for more deep dives into history. Let me know in the comments what aspect of this pre-urban landscape you find most compelling. Until next time, keep exploring. Welcome back to our journey through the ancient Southwest. Today, we're diving into Chapter 3. The arrival of the Ancestral Puebloans. This is where the story of the iconic cliff dwellings truly begins, with a people who learned to thrive in one of North America's most challenging landscapes. So, who were these early people, often referred to as the Ancestral Puebloans? For a long time, they were also known by the name Anasazi, a Navajo term. However, modern Pueblo people, who are their direct descendants, prefer the term Ancestral Puebloans, as it more accurately reflects their heritage. So that's the term we'll be using. Their story doesn't start in the grand cliff palaces we see today. It begins much earlier, with nomadic groups of hunter-gatherers. Around 1500 BC, something revolutionary happened in this region. The introduction of maize, or corn, from Mesoamerica. This single crop would change everything. It anchored these wandering groups to the land, slowly transforming them from nomads into farmers. This shift didn't happen overnight. For centuries, they continued to hunt and gather while experimenting with small-scale farming. But as they became more reliant on their crops, they needed a more permanent place to call home. This led to one of the most ingenious architectural innovations of the ancient world. The pit house. Imagine digging a shallow, circular pit into the earth, maybe a few feet deep. Then, you build a sturdy framework of logs and branches over it, and cover that with a thick layer of mud and adobe. The earth itself provides incredible insulation, keeping the home cool in the blistering summer heat and warm during the freezing desert nights. A small opening in the roof served as both an entrance, accessed by a ladder, and a chimney for a central fire pit. These weren't just simple shelters. They were the heart of family life. They were cozy, secure, and perfectly adapted to the environment. Inside, families would cook, sleep, and share stories, sheltered from the elements. If you could travel back in time to the year 500 AD, you wouldn't see towering stone villages, but sprawling communities of these humble, earth-sheltered homes, smoke curling from their rooftops. This period is often called the basket maker era, not just for their homes, but for their incredible skill in weaving intricate baskets used for everything from carrying water to cooking. Living in the high desert of the Four Corners region where Madre, Arizona, Utah, Colorado, and New Mexico meet was no easy task. The climate is one of extremes: scorching sun, scarce water, and unpredictable rainfall. Survival depended on a deep, almost spiritual understanding of the environment. The Ancestral Puebloans became masters of dryland farming. They didn't have massive irrigation canals like other ancient civilizations. Instead, they developed clever techniques to capture every single drop of precious water. They built small check dams in arroyos to slow down runoff and trap moist soil. They planted their crops on terrace slopes to prevent erosion and distribute water evenly. They learned to read the seasons in the sky, knowing the perfect time to plant their holy trinity of crops: corn, beans, and squash. These three plants, known as the Three Sisters, were a perfect team. The corn provided a stalk for the beans to climb. The beans fixed nitrogen in the soil, enriching it for the other plants, and the broad leaves of the squash shaded the ground, conserving moisture. It was a brilliant, sustainable system, but their connection to the land went far beyond just farming techniques. It was a core part of their spiritual beliefs. They saw the mountains, the mesas, and the sky not just as features of the landscape, but as living, sacred entities. The sun was a powerful deity, its journey across the sky dictating the cycles of life and agriculture. The rain was a blessing, a gift from the spirit. They held ceremonies, created rock art, and built special ceremonial structures to honor these forces and maintain balance with the world around them. This spiritual connection was deeply woven into their communal lifestyle. Unlike cultures that prioritize the individual, Ancestral Puebloan society was built around the group. Families lived in clusters of pit houses, sharing resources, labor, and knowledge. When it was time to plant or harvest, the entire community worked together. When a hunt was successful, the food was shared. This cooperation was essential for survival. In a land of scarcity, you couldn't make it alone. Your neighbor's well-being was directly tied to your own. This communal spirit is beautifully expressed in their early settlements. Archaeologists have found that pit house villages were often arranged in a way that suggests a high degree of social organization. And at the center of many of these villages, we find a larger, more elaborate pit structure. This wasn't just a bigger house, it was a precursor to the kiva, the sacred, subterranean chamber that would become the spiritual heart of every Puebloan village for the next 1,000 years. Inside this communal structure, elders would have passed down traditions, clan leaders would have planned ceremonies, and the community would have gathered to reinforce the social and spiritual bonds that held them together. It was in these dark, earthy spaces that the foundations of a complex society were laid. So, as we close this chapter, picture this: small, bustling villages, nestled in the vast, silent desert. People working together, their lives governed by the sun and the seasons. They are masters of survival, innovators in architecture, and deeply connected to the earth beneath their feet. They have successfully adapted to one of the harshest environments on the continent, not by conquering it, but by living in harmony with it. They didn't know it yet, but their journey was just beginning. The skills, beliefs, and social structures they developed during these early centuries would be the foundation upon which they would build the breathtaking cliff dwellings and great houses that still inspire our witness today. The stage was set for a cultural golden age. Join us next time as we explore Chapter 4, where we witness the incredible transition from pit houses to the magnificent stone architecture of the Pueblo I. And two periods, it's a story of growth, innovation, and the rise of the great Chaco Canyon. Thanks for watching. If you found this journey into the past as fascinating as I do, please hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and ring the bell so you don't miss our next chapter. We'll see you then. Welcome back to our journey through time. Today, we're diving into Chapter 4. Foundations of a Great City. We're stepping into the year 850 AD. A pivotal moment in the story of Chaco Canyon. This is when everything starts to change. When small, scattered settlements begin to transform into something truly monumental. Imagine the scene. For centuries, people have lived here in small, modest pit houses, partially dug into the earth. Life is centered around family, farming, and the cycles of the sun and moon. But a new idea is taking root, a vision for something grander, something more permanent. The scattered communities are starting to come together, pooling their resources, their knowledge, and their labor. This is the dawn of the Chaco and great houses. What sparked this incredible transformation? It wasn't just one thing. It was a combination of factors. A growing population needing more space, new social and religious ideas bringing people together, and a remarkable understanding of architecture and engineering. The people of Chaco were looking at their surroundings, the sandstone cliffs, the timber from the distant mountains, the very earth beneath their feet, seeing not just a home, but the raw materials for a metropolis. They began to build upwards, moving from subterranean pit houses to above-ground masonry rooms. At first, these were simple, single-story structures, but soon, ambition took over. They started stacking rooms one on top of another, creating multi-story apartment complexes that would have dwarfed anything seen in this region before. This wasn't just about shelter. It was a statement of unity, power, and a deep connection to this specific place. The heart of this new era is Pueblo Bonito. This structure didn't just appear overnight. It grew organically over 300 years, like a living thing. The first phase, around 850 AD, was a modest, C-shaped block of rooms. Bedtime, you could see the blueprint for greatness. The builders were meticulously selecting and shaping sandstone blocks, fitting them together with a precision that is still astounding today. Think about the sheer logistics of it. The primary building material was sandstone, quarried directly from the canyon walls. They would split massive slabs from the cliffs, then painstakingly shape each block using harder stones as tools. It was backbreaking work, all done by hand. They developed different masonry styles over time, almost like architectural signatures. Early walls used rough slab-like stones, but later styles featured a Koran veneer technique, with a ruble core faced with beautifully intricate patterns of smaller, carefully chosen stones. It was functional art, but a stone building also needs support, and for that, they needed timber. The massive roof beams, or vigas, that spanned the rooms of Pueblo Bonito tell an incredible story of their own. The trees needed for these beams, large ponderosa pines and firs, didn't grow in the canyon. The Chacons had to travel 50 miles or more to the Chusca and San Mateo mountains to harvest them. How did they transport thousands of logs, some weighing over 600 pounds, across such a distance without wheeled carts or draft animals? It was pure human ingenuity and collaborative effort. Imagine teams of people working together, carrying and dragging these enormous timbers across the rugged landscape, all driven by a shared vision for their growing city. Over 200,000 trees were used in the construction of the Chaco and great houses. It was one of the largest coordinated construction efforts in North America at the time. As Pueblo Bonito and other great houses like Unavida and Penasco Blanco grew, they became more than just residential buildings. They were complex, multifunctional centers. The design was deliberate. They were often aligned with solar and lunar events, showing a sophisticated knowledge of astronomy. Large, circular, subterranean chambers known as kivas became more numerous and more elaborate. These were the spiritual heart of the community, places for ceremony, councils, and social gatherings. The layout of these buildings fostered a sense of community. The D-shaped design of Pueblo Bonito, for example, encloses a central plaza. This open space was the vibrant hub of daily life, a place for trade, celebration, and public ritual. It was here that the transition from a collection of small villages to a unified, urban society truly became visible. People from surrounding communities would have gathered here, drawn by the magnetic pull of this new ceremonial and economic center. What's truly amazing is how they did all of this with such simple tools. Stone axes for felling trees, harder rocks for shaping sandstone, and baskets for carrying mortar and earth. There were no blueprints, no complex machinery. The knowledge was passed down through generations, refined with each new building phase. Their ingenuity is evident in every detail, from the way they tapered the wall sticker at the base, thinner at the top to provide stability for the upper stories, to the way they integrated their buildings into the natural landscape. So, around 850 AD, the seeds of a great city were planted, fueled by a powerful combination of social cohesion, spiritual belief, and incredible engineering skill. The people of Chaco began to transform their world. They took sandstone, timber, and their own ingenuity, and turned a remote canyon into the bustling center of a civilization. Pueblo Bonito was just the beginning, the foundation upon which an entire cultural phenomenon would be built. The canyon wasn't just a place to live anymore. It was becoming the center of the world. Thank you so much for joining me on this incredible step back in time. The story of Chaco is the story of human potential, and it's far from over. If you enjoyed this journey, please hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and ring the bell so you don't miss our next chapter. We'll see you then. Welcome back to our journey through the mysteries of Chaco Canyon. In our last chapter, we soared over the vast network of roads and great houses. Now, we descend into the very heart of this ancient world to explore its crown jewel, Pueblo Bonito. Prepare to be amazed, because what we're about to see challenges everything we thought we knew about ancestral Puebloan culture. Imagine standing in the New Mexico desert over 1,000 years ago. Before you rises a structure so immense, so architecturally advanced, it would remain the largest apartment-style building in North America until the late 19th century. This is Pueblo Bonito, the beautiful village. But village hardly does it justice. This was a metropolis, a ceremonial center, a feat of engineering that continues to baffle archaeologists today. Let's talk scale. We're looking at a D-shaped marvel covering nearly 2 acres. It originally rose for perhaps even 5 stories high, containing over 600 rooms. Think about that for a moment. 600 rooms, built not with modern machinery, but with stone, mud, and timber, shaped by human hands. The sheer manpower and organizational skill required are staggering. This wasn't a random collection of buildings. It was a master-planned community. As we virtually walk through its silent corridors, notice the masonry. The walls aren't just stacked stones. They are works of art. Archaeologists have identified different styles of construction, showing that Pueblo Bonito was built and expanded over several centuries. From around 850 to 1150 AD, early sections feature simple, single-row stonework, but later editions showcase the famous Chaco Canyon technique, strung in a core of rough stone and mud, faced with an exquisite, tightly fitted veneer of shaped sandstone. The patterns are so precise, so beautiful, they feel more like intricate mosaics than simple walls. It speaks to a society that valued not just function, but immense beauty and precision in their sacred spaces. Now, let's step out from the maze of rooms into the great central plaza. This was the social and spiritual hub of Pueblo Bonito. The air here would have been filled with the sounds of ceremonies, the smells of cooking fires, and the sight of people gathering, trading, and celebrating. And dotted throughout this plaza and the entire structure are the key. These perfectly circular, subterranean chambers are one of the most defining features of Puebloan architecture. Pueblo Bonito has around 40 of them. Most are small, likely used by individual clans or families for rituals and gatherings. But then there are the great kivas. These are enormous, cavernous spaces, dozens of feet in diameter, with intricate features like floor vaults, benches, and massive roof support pillars. Standing in the center of a great kiva, you can almost feel the weight of history, imagining the powerful ceremonies that once echoed off these walls, connecting the people to their cosmos and their ancestors. What secrets were shared here? What cosmic truths were debated? These were the spiritual engines of Chaco. But the genius of Pueblo Bonito extends beyond its walls and into the heavens. This wasn't just a building. It was an astronomical observatory. The main dividing wall that runs north to south through the structure is aligned with astonishing precision. Doorways and windows are carefully placed to capture the light of the sun and moon at specific critical times of the year. On the winter and summer solstices, and the spring and fall, equal shafts of light would have pierced the darkness of specific rooms, marking the turning of the seasons. This celestial alignment was not for casual stargazing. It was fundamental to their survival and their worldview. It told them when to plant, when to harvest, and when to hold their most important ceremonies. The sun and moon were not just distant objects. They were active participants in the life of the community. The builders of Pueblo Bonito encoded their understanding of the cosmos directly into the stone, creating a calendar of immense scale and permanence. They lived in a world where the earthly and the divine were seamlessly intertwined, where their home was a reflection of the universe itself. Yet, for all we've uncovered, Pueblo Bonito holds its deepest secrets close. What were all these rooms for? While some were clearly living quarters, many are small, dark, and lack fire pits or any sign of domestic life. Were they for storage? The sheer volume of storage space suggests Pueblo Bonito was a central collection and redistribution point for goods like turquoise, pottery, and food for the entire region. It may have been a massive warehouse, a bank, and a trade hub all in one. And who, exactly, lived here? Was it a bustling city populated by thousands? Or was it a ceremonial center, occupied only by a small elite class of priests, astronomers, and leaders, with a larger population visiting only for special events? Recent analysis of burial sites within Pueblo Bonito reveals something fascinating. A high-status burial chamber, Room 33, contained individuals who shared a specific maternal lineage. This suggests that leadership at Pueblo Bonito might have been hereditary, passed down through generations of a powerful matriarchal dynasty. These weren't just chiefs, they were royalty, presiding over a complex and stratified society. The artifacts discovered here paint a picture of a culture with incredible wealth and far-reaching connections. We've found thousands of pieces of turquoise, macaw, feathers, and skeletons from deep in Mexico, intricate pottery with stunning black-on-white designs, and even cylindrical jars, believed to be used for drinking cacao. Luxury item imported from Mesoamerica, hundreds of miles to the south. Pueblo Bonito wasn't an isolated outpost. It was a cosmopolitan center at the heart of a vast trade network that spanned a huge portion of the continent. As we reach the end of our exploration of Pueblo Bonito, we are left with more questions than answers. What caused its construction to cease so abruptly in the mid-1100 SA? And why, within a century, was this magnificent center, along with the entire Chaco system, abandoned? The mystery of its decline is as profound as the story of its rise. Pueblo Bonito is more than just a ruin. It is a testament to the boundless ingenuity, spiritual depth, and social complexity of the ancestral Puebloan people. It stands as a silent, powerful reminder of a world that we are only just beginning to understand. It forces us to reconsider the history of this continent and the incredible achievements of its first peoples. Thank you for joining me in the heart of Chaco Canyon. I hope you've enjoyed this deep dive into the magnificent Pueblo Bonito. If you found this journey as fascinating as I did, please hit that like button and subscribe to our channel for more explorations into the ancient world. Don't forget to ring the notification bell so you won't miss our next chapter, where we will investigate the great mystery, the collapse of the Chacoan world. What happened to the people who built these wonders? Join us next time to find out. Thanks for watching. Have you ever heard of a highway system built 1,000 years ago, stretching for hundreds of miles across the desert, with roads as wide as modern 3-lane freeways? And the biggest mystery, they weren't built for carts or animals. Welcome to the enigma of the Chacoan road system, one of ancient North America's most incredible and baffling achievements. Deep in the high desert of what is now New Mexico, the ancestral Puebloan people of Chaco Canyon engineered something truly extraordinary between the 9th and 13th centuries. We're not talking about simple footpaths. These were meticulously planned, incredibly straight roads, some up to 30 feet wide, radiating out from the great houses of Chaco Canyon for over 400 miles. They cut through the landscape with an almost supernatural precision, ignoring natural obstacles. If a cliff was in the way, They carved staircases. If a mesa blocked the path, they built ramps. These roads were a statement. But a statement of what? That's the question that has fascinated archaeologists for decades. The most obvious answer, trade, doesn't quite hold up. The ancestral Puebloans had no wheeled vehicles, no draft animals like horses or oxen. Everything was transported on foot. So why build such wide, straight roads just for people walking in single file? The sheer scale and effort seemed far beyond what would be needed for simple commerce. The labor required to build these roads was immense, suggesting they served a purpose far more significant than just moving turquoise or pottery. This leads us to more profound theories. Were they ceremonial paths? Imagine hundreds, maybe thousands, of people making a pilgrimage, walking these wide, straight avenues towards the great spiritual center of Chaco Canyon. The roads themselves could have been part of the ritual, their straightness representing a direct spiritual connection, a line of power linking the central canyon to outlying communities. Standing on one of these ancient roads, you can almost feel the procession, the chanting, the shared sense of purpose as people traveled toward a sacred destination. The roads weren't just about getting from point A to point B. They were about the journey itself, a physical manifestation of a spiritual path. Another compelling idea is that these roads were astronomical or cosmological alignments. The Chaco people were keen observers of the sky. Their buildings are famous for aligning with solar and lunar events. It's possible these roads were part of a larger cosmic map laid out on the Earth, connecting important terrestrial features with celestial bodies. Perhaps they pointed to sacred mountains, solstice, sunrises, or specific points on the horizon that held deep meaning. In T's view, the roads weren't just for travel. They were a way of ordering their world, of mirroring the harmony of the heavens on the land below. They were lines of sight, spiritual conduits that integrated the human world with the cosmos. Modern technology like LiDAR, which can map the ground beneath vegetation, is revealing even more of this vast network, showing roads we never knew existed. Each new discovery adds another layer to the puzzle. We see that the roads often lead from a great house directly to a small, isolated shrine, or sometimes just seem to end in the middle of nowhere. What was happening at these locations? Why was it so important to have a massive, engineered road leading to them? The Chaco roads challenge our modern assumptions about what's practical. They force us to consider that for some ancient cultures, the spiritual, the ceremonial, and the cosmological were just as important, if not more so, than the purely functional. These weren't just roads. They were arteries of a civilization, carrying not just goods, but people, ideas, and faith across a vast and sacred landscape. They were built with a vision that extended beyond the immediate horizon, connecting the physical world with the realm of belief. The truth is, we may never know the single, definitive purpose of the Chaco Road system. It was likely a combination of all these things. A network for trade, a path for pilgrims, a cosmic map, and a symbol of the central power and ideology of Chaco Canyon. They are a silent, stone-lined testament to the ambition, ingenuity, and deep spiritual life of a people who thrived in this challenging environment a millennium ago. They remind us that some of the greatest structures ever built were not for commerce or conquest, but for connecting with something larger than ourselves. Thank you so much for joining me on this journey back in time. What do you think these incredible roads were for? Let me know your theories in the comments below. If you enjoyed this exploration into ancient mysteries, please hit that like button and subscribe for more deep dives into the wonders of our past. See you next time. Welcome, bike, history buffs, and stargazers. Today, we're journeying back 1,000 years to Chaco Canyon. But we're not just looking at stones and walls. We're looking up at the sky, just as the ancestral Puebloans did. This is Chapter 7, The Art of Alignment. Prepare to have your mind blown, because Chaco wasn't just a city, it was a cosmic clock, a celestial calendar carved into the very landscape. The people who built these incredible structures were not just master architects, they were brilliant astronomers. They possessed a profound understanding of the sun's journey, the moon's cycles, and the stars' steady march across the night sky. This wasn't just a hobby, it was fundamental to their way of life. Their knowledge of the cosmos dictated when to plant, when to harvest, and when to gather for sacred ceremonies. Time itself was not measured by a ticking clock, but by the grand, predictable dance of celestial bodies, and they built their world to reflect this cosmic rhythm. Many of Chaco's great houses are not randomly placed. Their walls, windows, and doorways are precisely oriented to capture the light of the sun and moon at very specific times of the year. Imagine standing in a room in Pueblo Bonito and watching a beam of sunlight pierce the darkness to illuminate a special niche on the wall, but only on the morning of the winter solstice. This wasn't an accident. This was celestial architecture, a deliberate fusion of the earthly and the heavenly. These alignments served as a calendar, letting everyone in the community know that a new season had arrived, or that it was time for a specific ritual. Let's take a closer look at Casa Rinconada, the largest kiva in the canyon. It's a masterpiece of astronomical engineering. It has 6 niches in its walls. During the summer solstice, a ray of sunlight enters through a window in the northeast and travels across the kiva to perfectly illuminate one of these niches. It's a breathtaking spectacle, a solar event captured and celebrated within sacred space. Other alignments mark the equinoxes, the moments in spring and fall when day and night are of equal length. The entire structure is a device for marking the passage of time, a testament to the meticulous planning and observation of its builders. They didn't just watch the sky, they built a dialogue with it. But the most famous, and perhaps most enigmatic example of Chaco astronomy is the sun dagger. High atop Fajada Butte, a solitary monolith that rises dramatically from the canyon floor. Ancient hands arranged 3 massive sandstone slabs. For centuries, their secret was safe. It wasn't until 1977 that it was rediscovered. Behind these slabs, 2 spiral petroglyphs are carved into the cliff face. Here's where it gets truly magical. On the summer solstice, the longest day of the year, a single sliver of sunlight, a dagger of light, passes between the slabs and perfectly bisects the larger spiral. As the sun moves, the dagger descends right through the center of the carving. Then, on the winter solstice, the shortest day of the year, 2 daggers of light appear, perfectly bracketing the same spiral. And on the spring and fall equinoxes, the larger spiral is struck by a dagger of light, while a smaller, secondary dagger cuts through the center of the smaller spiral petroglyph. This is precision on a level that is hard to comprehend. The sun dagger is not just a calendar. It's a dynamic display, a celestial light show that unfolds year after year. It marks not only the solstices and equinoxes, but also the 18.6-year lunar cycle, a much more complex astronomical phenomenon. The shadow cast by the slabs at the moon S, major and minor standstills, also aligns with the spirals in specific ways. This demonstrates a level of sophisticated, long-term observation that challenges our preconceived notions of ancient technology. Think about the effort involved. These engineers and skywatchers had to identify this exact spot on the butte, haul and position these enormous stone slabs with pinpoint accuracy, and carve the petroglyphs in just the right place. They did this without modern tools, without written mathematics as we know it, relying instead on generations of accumulated knowledge passed down through observation and tradition. It's a profound statement about their connection to the world around them. The sun dagger and the many other alignments throughout Chaco Canyon remind us that science and spirituality were not separate for the ancestral Pueblo. The movement of the sun was both a practical tool for agriculture and a deeply sacred event. The canyon wasn't just a place to live, it was a sacred landscape, an observatory, and a ceremonial center, all intertwined. The very architecture was designed to bridge the gap between humanity and the cosmos, to make the sacred visible in daily life. These ancient engineers aligned their world with the heavens, embedding their understanding of the universe into the very stones of their homes. It's a legacy of genius, a silent testament to a people who lived in harmony with the rhythms of the earth and sky. They didn't just inhabit the landscape, they collaborated with it, creating a masterpiece of environmental and astronomical art. As we continue our exploration of Chaco, remember that every wall and every window might hold a celestial secret. The people who lived here were not just surviving, they were observing, calculating, and celebrating the grand, beautiful order of the cosmos. Thank you so much for joining me on this astronomical journey through Chaco Canyon. If you found this as fascinating as I do, please hit that like button and subscribe for more deep dives into the mysteries of the past. Let me know in the comments what you think is the most impressive part of Chaco's celestial alignment. Until next time, keep looking up. Welcome back to our journey through time. Today, we leave behind the grand questions of construction and astronomy to simply live for a while, here, under the vast New Mexico sky. Let's step into the rhythm of daily life in Chaco Canyon to feel what it might have been like 1,000 years ago. The day begins with the sun, its first rays painting the canyon walls in shades of ochre and rose. The air is cool and still, carrying the scent of juniper and dust. From the great houses and the smaller villages, a gentle sound begins to echo, the rhythmic scrape of stone on stone. This is a sound of life itself, the sound of women grinding corn on metates. This wasn't just a chore, it was a ritual, a meditation. The corn, carefully grown in fields watered by clever irrigation systems, was the very foundation of their world. As they worked, they talked, shared news, and passed down knowledge from mother to daughter. The fine, life-giving flour, piling up with each patient stroke. As the sun climbs higher, other activities fill the plazas. Imagine the putter, her hands covered in the cool, damp clay dug from the canyon floor. She doesn't use a wheel. Instead, she patiently rolls coils of clay, stacking them one on top of the other, her skilled fingers smoothing and shaping them into the elegant, thin-walled vessels we now see in museums. Each pot is a canvas, with a brush made from yucca fibers and pigments made from minerals and plants. She paints intricate black-on-white designs, geometric patterns, stylized birds, and symbols whose full meanings are now lost to us. These weren't just containers for water or food. They were expressions of beauty, identity, and a deep connection to their world. Firing these pots was a delicate and risky process, a testament to their mastery of earth and fire. Nearby, in the shade of a wall, you might find a weaver at his loom. Yes, in this culture, it was often the men who wove. The upright loom is a marvel of simplicity and ingenuity. The cotton, a precious commodity traded from lands far to the south, is spun into strong, even thread. With a shuttle in hand, the weaver meticulously passes the weft threads through the warp. His feet working the head, the vibrant patterns emerge slowly, line by line, belts, blankets, and ceremonial garments. They wove with cotton, but also with yucca fibers and even turkey feathers, creating textiles that were both practical for the cold desert nights and stunningly beautiful. Each piece told a story, its patterns holding cultural significance, a woven language of belonging. The Chaco people were not just builders and farmers. They were artisans of the highest order. Look closer, and you'll see someone delicately chipping away at a piece of turquoise. This vibrant blue stone, considered more precious than gold, was painstakingly shaped into tiny beads, intricate pendants, and mosaic inlays. They worked with shell from the distant oceans, jet from the surrounding hills, and exotic materials like macaw feathers from the jungles of Mesoamerica. These weren't just decorations. They were markers of status, items for sacred rituals, and a vital part of a trade network that connected Chaco to a continent. The patience and precision required to create these tiny masterpieces speak volumes about their values and their worldview. As the day's heat begins to soften and long shadows stretch across the canyon floor, the community gathers. The scent of cooking fires fills the air, mingling with the aroma of corn, beans, and squash. Families come together to share the evening meal. This is a time for connection, for laughter, and for reinforcing the bonds that held their society together. Children would play in the plazas, their voices echoing off the stone walls that had watched over generations. It was in these simple, everyday moments that the true strength of Chaco was forged. When darkness finally falls, a different kind of light appears, the soft, flickering glow of a fire from within a kiva. The people descend the ladder into this circular, subterranean chamber, a symbolic representation of the womb of the earth, the place of emergence in their origin stories. The air inside is warm and filled with a scent of burning cedar. Here, around the central hearth, the elders would speak. They would tell the stories of the beginning of the world, of the heroic deeds of ancestors, and of the sacred obligations of the people to the land and the spirits. These weren't just bedtime stories. They were their history, their law, their science, and their religion, all woven into a single, powerful narrative. It was here, in the heart of the kiva, that the community's soul was nurtured, where children learned who they were, and where the Chacon way was passed from one generation to the next. A living flame kept bright against the desert nights. Life here wasn't easy. It required constant work, cooperation, and a deep understanding of a challenging environment. But it was also a life rich with purpose, community, and beauty. From the corn ground at dawn to the stories told at night, every action was infused with meaning, a part of a grand, interconnected whole. To stand here today is to feel the faint echo of that rhythm, a gentle whisper on the wind, reminding us of the vibrant world that once flourished in this sacred canyon. Thank you for joining me in this quiet reflection on Chacon life. It's in understanding their daily world that we can truly appreciate the magnitude of their achievements. If you enjoyed this journey, please consider liking the video and subscribing to the channel. We have much more to explore together. Until next time, keep wondering. Welcome back to our journey through the wonders of Chaco Canyon. Today, we're descending into the very heart of its spiritual and social world. The ceremonial kiva. If the great houses were the body of Chaco, then the kivas were undoubtedly its soul. So, what exactly is a kiva? Imagine a circular, subterranean chamber, a space that feels both intimate and sacred. You enter by descending a ladder through an opening in the roof, symbolizing a journey into the earth, a return to the origins of life in Puebloan cosmology. These structures weren't just buildings, they were microcosms of the universe, designed to connect people with the spiritual realm. Throughout Chaco Canyon, you'll find hundreds of these smaller kivas, typically integrated within the great house complexes. These were likely used by individual clans or kin groups. Picture a family or a small community gathering round a central hearth, the firelight flickering on the stone walls, as elders pass down stories, traditions, and essential knowledge. These were the spaces where social bonds were forged, where disputes were settled, and where the community reinforced its identity, generation after generation. The smoke from the hearth would rise through the roof opening, carrying prayers and thoughts up to the sky world, linking the people below with the cosmos above. It was in these intimate settings that the daily rhythm of Chacon life found its spiritual anchor. But Chaco also boasts something on a much grander scale: the great kivas. These are monumental structures, engineering marvels designed to accommodate hundreds of people at once. They stand apart, powerful statements of collective identity and spiritual power. Let's talk about the most famous of them all, Casa Rinconada, standing isolated on the south side of Chaco Wash. Casa Rinconada is breathtaking. It's a massive, perfectly circular structure, over 60 feet in diameter. Unlike the smaller kivas, it wasn't built within a great house. It was a destination in its own right. Getting there required a deliberate pilgrimage, crossing the canyon to participate in what must have been incredibly significant events. Stepping inside, you can almost feel the energy. Imagine this space filled with people from dozens of outlying communities, all drawn to Chaco for a major ceremony. The acoustics are phenomenal. A single voice could carry to every corner. The architecture is rich with symbolism. There are massive roof support pillars, a central fire pit, and floor vaults that might have been used as foot drums, their resonant beats echoing the pulse of the earth. What's truly mind-blowing about Casa Rinconada and other great kivas is their precise astronomical alignment. On the summer solstice, a beam of sunlight enters through a specific window and illuminates a niche on the opposite wall. This isn't an accident. This is sophisticated celestial engineering. These kivas were giant calendars, clocks, and compasses, all in one. The ceremonies held here weren't random. They were timed to perfection with the cycles of the sun, moon, and stars. Think about what this means. These alignments allowed Chaconspiro leaders to predict and mark crucial moments in the agricultural year, the time to plant, the time to harvest. The ceremonies held here would have been powerful unifying events, reinforcing the central role of Chaco as the region's cosmological and ritual hub. People journeyed from hundreds of miles away, from distant villages connected by the Chaco road system. Not just for trade, but for these shared spiritual experiences. These gatherings were the glue that held the widespread Chaco world together. They were moments of immense social and religious importance. In a world without instant communication, these ceremonies were how culture was transmitted, how alliances were strengthened, and how a collective identity was maintained across a vast and challenging landscape. People would bring offerings, share news, and participate in rituals that reaffirmed their connection to each other and to Chaco itself. The great kivas were theaters of cosmology. The events that took place within their walls were likely elaborate, multi-day affairs involving chanting, dancing, and storytelling. They might have reenacted creation myths, celebrating the emergence of the first people from the underworld, a journey mirrored by the kiva's own subterranean design. Participants would leave not just with goods, but with a renewed sense of their place in the universe, their shared purpose defined and celebrated within these sacred, circular walls. So, when we look at the kivas of Chaco, we're seeing more than just ancient architecture. We're seeing the spiritual and social engine of a civilization. From the small, clan-based kivas that nurtured community on a daily basis, to the magnificent great kivas that brought together an entire region. These structures were where the people of Chaco connected with their world, their cosmos, and each other. They are a powerful testament to a society that placed immense value on ceremony, community, and the intricate dance between the earth and the sky. Thank you so much for joining me on this deep dive into the heart of Chaco. The story is far from over, and in our next chapter, we'll explore the incredible network of roads that tied this whole world together. If you're enjoying this journey, please hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and ring the bell so you don't miss what's coming next. See you, Tin. Hello, and welcome back to our deep dive into the ancient world. Today, we're journeying back 1,000 years to a place that, at first glance, seems utterly remote. Chaco Canyon. But as we'll discover in this episode, Chaco was anything but isolated. It was a bustling hub, the heart of a vast network of trade and cultural exchange that stretched across the continent. Imagine a web, not of silk, but of roads, relationships, and precious goods, with Chaco right at its center. This chapter uncovers the story of how a civilization in the high desert of New Mexico connected with peoples hundreds, even thousands, of miles away. So, grab your virtual hiking boots, because we're about to follow the ancient trade routes that connected the desert southwest to a much wider world. Let's start with Chaco's most famous export, turquoise. This vibrant blue-green stone was more than just a pretty rock to the ancestral Puebloans. It was sacred. It embodied the color of the sky and of life-giving water. Chacoan artisans were masters at working with turquoise, crafting intricate jewelry, mosaics, and ceremonial objects. But they weren't just making these for themselves. Archaeologists have found Chacoan turquoise as far south as the great city-states of Mesoamerica, in what is now central Mexico. Can you picture it? Caravans of traders, navigating the harsh terrain, carrying these precious stones on a journey of over 1,000 miles. In return, they brought back ideas, new technologies, and perhaps even new beliefs. This wasn't just trade. It was a conversation between cultures, a silent dialogue written in stone and traded across vast distances. The Turquoise Trail was a lifeline of influence, connecting the world of the Pueblos with the world of the Maya and the Aztecs. Now, let's turn our gaze west, towards the glittering expanse of the Pacific Ocean. Imagine living in the dry, landlocked world of Chaco Canyon. The nearest ocean is over 500 miles away across rugged mountains and scorching deserts. Yet, within the great houses of Chaco, archaeologists have unearthed treasures from the sea. Thousands upon thousands of seashells, from tiny alavela shells used for beads to large, beautiful conch shells that were transformed into trumpets or ceremonial vessels. How did they get here? It tells us of another incredible trade route, this one linking the desert dwellers with coastal peoples. These shells weren't just decorations, they were potent symbols. They carried the power and mystery of the ocean, a world so different from their own. Finding a seashell in Chaco is like finding a piece of the desert in a coral reef. As a testament to human ingenuity, curiosity, and the relentless drive to connect with the world beyond the horizon. These weren't just goods being exchanged. They were fragments of different worlds, shared and valued across immense cultural and geographical divides. But the connections didn't stop at stones and shells. Perhaps the most astonishing evidence of Chaco's far-reaching network comes in the form of feather-specific. The brilliantly colored feathers of the macaws are not native to the American Southwest. Their natural habitat is the humid, tropical forests of Mexico and Central America, a world away from the arid canyons of New Mexico. Yet, skeletal remains of these birds, carefully buried, have been found at Pueblo Bonito and other Chacoan sites. This is staggering. It means that not only were their feathers being traded over immense distances, but live birds were being transported. Imagine the difficulty of keeping these tropical birds alive on such a long and arduous journey. This wasn't a casual trade. It required sophisticated knowledge and a highly organized effort. For the Chacoans, these feathers were incredibly valuable, likely used in sacred ceremonies and as symbols of status and power. The presence of macaws in Chaco paints a vivid picture of a society with the means and the desire to acquire the most exotic and powerful. Symbols from distant lands, weaving the tropics into the fabric of their desert civilization. So, what does all this mean? It means we have to completely rethink our image of ancient Chaco. This wasn't a lost world, a remote outpost of civilization. It was a cosmopolitan center, a key player in a continental system of exchange. The roads we see radiating out from Chaco Canyon weren't just for local travel. They were arteries of commerce and communication, pumping goods, ideas, and influence across the ancient Southwest and beyond. Turquoise flowed south, seashells flowed east, and macaw feathers flowed north, all converging on this remarkable place in the desert. This intricate web of culture didn't just enrich Chaco, it helped define it. It shaped their art, their rituals, and their understanding of their place in the world. They knew they were part of something bigger, a community that transcended the immediate landscape. The story of Chaco's trade network is a powerful reminder that human societies have always been interconnected. The desire to explore, to trade, and to connect with others is a fundamental part of our shared human story. The people of Chaco, without maps or modern technology, built a world connected by footpaths and faith. They created a vibrant cultural mosaic, drawing on the resources and ideas of peoples from the Pacific coast to the jungles of Mesoamerica. It challenges our modern notions of distance and isolation. This web of connections also highlights the incredible organizational skills of the Chacoan people. Managing these long-distance trade routes required planning, diplomacy, and a stable society capable of producing a surplus to trade. It speaks to a level of social and political complexity that is truly awe-inspiring. As we look at the silent ruins of Chaco today, it's easy to see only what was lost. But the turquoise, the shells, and the feathers tell a different story. They speak of a dynamic and connected world, a testament to the enduring human spirit of exploration and exchange. They are whispers from the past, reminding us that even in the most unlikely of places, culture thrives on connection. The legacy of Chaco isn't just in its monumental architecture, but in the invisible threads that tied it to a continent. Thank you so much for joining me on this journey through time. It's been incredible to explore these ancient connections with you. If you found this as fascinating as I did, please consider hitting that like button and subscribing to the channel for more deep dives into our shared past. Your support means the world to us. Until next time, stay curious. Welcome back to our series, where we unravel the greatest mysteries of the ancient world. Today, we're in the heart of a vast, arid landscape, surrounded by the ruins of a civilization that achieved the impossible. We're retackling a question that has baffled historians and archaeologists for decades: the mystery of the timber. Look around at these magnificent structures. These aren't just small huts. They are monumental buildings, some soaring several stories high. Archaeologists estimate that over 200,000 trees were used in their construction. 200,000. That's an entire forest. The beams above us, the support structures within the walls, all made from massive logs of ponderosa pine, spruce, and fir. But here's the puzzle. There are no forests here. Not a single one. The nearest significant sources of this kind of timber were over 50 miles away, across treacherous terrain, deep canyons, and vast, waterless plains. How did they do it? How did an ancient people, wheat, no whales, no draft animals like horses or oxen, transport thousands upon thousands of massive, heavy logs across such a punishing landscape? This is one of the most profound engineering enigmas of the ancient Americas. Let's put this into perspective. Imagine you and a group of friends need to move just one log. A single one of these beams could weigh over 600 pounds and be more than 15 feet long. Now, imagine moving 200,000 of them. Without modern technology, it seems like an insurmountable task. Yet, the evidence is right here, solid and undeniable, challenging everything we think we know about the limits of human ingenuity. For years, the prevailing theory was simple: brute force. The idea was that large teams of people carried these logs on their shoulders. It's a testament to human endurance. But is it the full story? Imagine the sheer number of people required. It would have been a monumental, multi-generational effort, consuming a vast amount of resources, food, and water just to support the workforce. Some researchers have suggested a relay system where teams would carry logs for a certain distance before passing them off to the next group. This could have worked, but the logistics of organizing such a massive, continuous operation are mind. But what if there's more to it than just manpower? Let's explore some of the more creative, and perhaps more plausible, theories that have emerged. One fascinating idea involves the landscape itself. The climate here wasn't always as dry as it is today. Archaeological and geological data suggests there were periods of higher rainfall. Could ancient engineers have used seasonal waterways or temporary flash floods to their advantage? Picture this. During the wet season, normally dry riverbeds, or arroyos, could have turned into temporary rivers. Perhaps they floated the logs downstream. This would drastically reduce the effort required. However, this theory has its own challenges. The water flow would have been unpredictable, and controlling massive logs in a rushing current would be incredibly dangerous. Plus, not all the construction sites were conveniently located downstream. Many were uphill from the nearest potential waterway. This leads us to another, even more intriguing theory. Roads, not paved highways like we have today, but carefully planned and constructed pathways. Archaeologists have discovered an extensive network of ancient roads connecting these sites to distant communities and resources. These weren't simple footpaths. They were wide straights, and remarkably well. Some were even bordered with stone. Could these roads have been the key? Perhaps they weren't just for walking. Some researchers propose that they created a kind of track system. Imagine laying down smaller logs as rollers and then pulling the giant beams over them, like a human-powered conveyor belt. This would reduce friction and make it possible for a smaller team to move a massive weight. They might have used ropes made from yucca fiber and simple leverage techniques to inch the logs forward, one pull at a time. This method, while still incredibly labor-intensive, seems much more efficient than simply carrying the logs. It would have been a slow, painstaking process, but it combines human power with clever engineering. There's also a theory that combines several of these ideas. Maybe they used a multi-stage process. Perhaps they felled the trees in the high mountains during winter and used snow and ice to slide the logs down to lower elevations. From there, they might have waited for the seasonal rains to float them part of the way. And finally, used the road network and roller systems for the final leg of the journey. This hybrid approach seems to acknowledge the complexity of the challenge and the adaptability of the people. And what about the social organization required? Moving this much timber wasn't just an engineering problem. It was a societal one. This was a project that likely spanned generations. It suggests a society with a powerful, unifying vision, led by individuals who could organize labor on an immense scale. Was it a shared religious belief that drove them? A powerful leader, a collective understanding of their place in the cosmos, expressed through these monumental buildings. The movement of the timber wasn't just logistics. It was a ritual, a pilgrimage of materials that bound the entire region together. Each beam carried not just its own weight, but the weight of their culture's ambition and devotion. So, what's the answer? The truth is, we still don't know for sure. It was likely a combination of all these things: incredible human strength, brilliant engineering, a deep understanding of their environment, and an astonishing level of social cooperation. The mystery of the timber isn't just about wood, it's about the people. It's a story of resilience, ingenuity, and the unyielding human drive to build something that lasts, something that reaches for the heavens. Even when the forests are miles away, the silent beams in these ruins continue to whisper their story, challenging us to keep searching for the answers. Thank you so much for joining me on this journey into the past. What do you think? How did they manage to transport all this timber? Let me know your theories in the comments below. If you enjoyed this exploration, please hit that like button and subscribe for more deep dives into history's greatest unsolved mysteries. We'll see you in the next chapter. Welcome back to our journey through the annals of history. Today, we venture into landscapes that seem impossibly harsh. Places where life clings precariously to existence. The world's great deserts. It's easy to imagine these vast, arid expanses as barren wastelands, forever hostile to human settlement. But what if I told you that some of history's most ingenious civilizations didn't just survive here, but thrived? How did they accomplish this seemingly impossible feat? The answer, my friends, lies not in conquering the desert, but in harmonizing with it, through the masterful management of its most precious resource, water. This is Chapter 12. Water in the desert. Let's begin by understanding the sheer scale of the challenge. In many of these regions, rain is a rare and fleeting gift. It might not fall for months, or even years, and when it does, it often arrives in sudden, violent downpours. A torrential flash flood can carve through a dry riverbed, a destructive force that disappears as quickly as it came, leaving the land as parched as before. The ancient engineers of the desert knew that their survival depended on capturing every single drop of this unpredictable bounty. Their goal was to tame the flash flood, transforming its chaotic energy into a life-giving, controllable resource. Their primary tools were stone, earth, and an incredible understanding of topography. Picture this: a network of small, strategically placed dams. Not massive, like the Hoover Dam, but low, sturdy structures built across smaller gullies and these weren't designed to stop the water completely, but to slow it down. As the floodwaters hit these check dams, their velocity would decrease, allowing precious silt and organic matter to settle. More importantly, it gave the water time to seep deep into the sandy soil, replenishing the underground aquifers that would act as a natural, long-term reservoir, safe from the evaporating heat of the sun. But slowing the water was only the first step. The next was to guide it. This is where the canals come in. These weren't just simple ditches. They were marvels of precision engineering, using the gentlest of gradients, often imperceptible to the naked eye. These channels would divert a portion of the floodwater away from its natural, destructive path. They would snake across the landscape, sometimes for miles, leading the captured water towards two critical destinations: agricultural fields and storage basins. The gradients had to be perfect. Too steep, and the water would flow too quickly, eroding the canal itself. Too shallow, and the water would stagnate and evaporate. These ancient surveyors, armed with little more than simple sighting tools and an intimate knowledge of their land, achieved a level of accuracy that still astounds modern engineers. Now, let's talk about the fields. The diverted water would flow into terraced plots of land, often built along the contours of a hillside. Each terrace acted like a shallow pan. Water would fill the highest terrace first, irrigating the crops planted there. Once it was sufficiently soaked, a small opening would be made in the earthen bank, allowing the excess to flow gently down to the next terrace, and so on. This system, known as cascade irrigation, ensured that no water was wasted. It distributed the resource evenly and efficiently, turning barren slopes into green, productive stairways of life. It was a delicate dance between gravity, water, and human ingenuity. While irrigating the fields was the immediate priority, storing water for the long, dry months ahead was just as crucial. This is where cisterns and basins played their part. Large, man-made reservoirs, often lined with waterproof plaster made from lime and ash, were excavated to hold the diverted floodwater. Some were open to the sky, while others were vast, subterranean chambers, protecting the water from the relentless sun. In cities like Petra, carved directly into the rock, you can still see these incredible feats of engineering. A complex system of channels, carved along the cliff faces, collected every drop of rain that fell on the rock, funneling it down into hundreds of hidden systems. This ensured that the city had a reliable water supply for its population, its animals, and even its gardens, right in the heart of the desert. This wasn't just a collection of disconnected techniques. It was a holistic, integrated system. The check dams slowed the water. The canals diverted it. The terraces distributed it to the crops, and the cisterns stored it for the future. Every element worked in concert with the others. It was a system born from generations of careful observation, trial, and error. These ancient people were not just engineers, they were ecologists. They understood the rhythm of their environment to patterns of the rain, the properties of the soil, the flow of gravity. They knew that their long-term survival depended on maintaining a delicate balance, on giving back to the land as much as they took from it. By recharging the aquifers and trapping nutrient-rich silt, their agricultural practices actually improved the fertility of the land over time. Think about the societal implications of this. These water systems required immense communal effort to build and maintain. Canals had to be cleared of silt, dams had to be repaired after every flood, and the distribution of water had to be managed fairly to prevent conflict. This fostered a strong sense of community and cooperation. Rules and social structures evolved around the sharing of water, creating stable, resilient societies that could withstand the unpredictability of their environment. The water system was the very backbone of their civilization, a physical manifestation of their collective will to survive and prosper. When we look at the ruins of these ancient desert civilizations today, it's easy to focus on the temples and the tombs. But perhaps the greatest testament to their genius lies hidden in the landscape itself, in the subtle lines of a forgotten canal, the stony remains of a terrace wall, or the dark opening of a hidden city. These are the quiet monuments to an incredible story of human resilience and ingenuity. They teach us a powerful lesson, that even in the most challenging conditions, it is possible to create abundance, not through brute force, but through wisdom, patience, and a deep respect for the natural world. Their ability to make the desert bloom was not magic. It was the result of a profound and sophisticated partnership with their environment. A partnership that allowed them to capture the rain and cultivate a future. Thank you so much for joining me on this exploration. I hope it's given you a new appreciation for the incredible achievements of these ancient engineers. If you found this journey as fascinating as I did, please consider liking this video and subscribing to the channel for more chapters from our shared human story. We'll see you next time. Have you ever stood before a piece of ancient art, a carving etched into stone thousands of years ago, and felt a profound sense of connection? It's a feeling that collapses time, a whisper from a distant past speaking directly to you. Today, we're journeying deep into the heart of canyons and rock shelters, to a world before written language, where stories were told not with words, but with images. This is Chapter 13. Art, Symbol, and Story. Imagine the scene. The sun beats down on a vast, red rock canyon. The only sounds are the wind and the distant cry of a hawk. Here, on these ancient stone walls, are messages left by people who lived in a world so different from our own, yet so fundamentally the same. These are petroglyphs, images carved into the rock surface, and pictographs, images painted onto it. They are the enduring art of ancient cultures, a gallery open to the sky. But what do they mean? That's the great mystery that draws us in. We see spirals, geometric shapes, stick-like human figures with outstretched arms, and animals. Bighorn sheep, deer, and strange, otherworldly creatures. Each one is a deliberate mark, a thought made permanent. These aren't random doodles. They are a library of stone, holding the knowledge, beliefs, and histories of entire civilizations. Let's look closer at some of the most common symbols. The spiral, for instance, is found in ancient art all over the world. What could it represent? For some, it might symbolize the cycle of life, death, and rebirth. For others, it could be a map of a journey, either a physical migration or a spiritual quest into another realm. Some scholars believe these spirals are tied to astronomy, tracking the movement of the sun, the moon, or the stars. Think of a solstice, the longest or shortest day of the year. An ancient artist might have carved a spiral where a dagger of sunlight would strike on that specific day, creating a celestial calendar etched in stone. It's a breathtaking thought, a connection between the earth, and the cosmos, documented by a human hand. Then we have the figures. Some are clearly human, often depicted in groups. Are they dancing? Performing a ritual? Are they historical figures? Great leaders? Or sometimes these figures are shown with horns or animal features, becoming what we call anthropomorphs, part human, part animal. These could represent shamans in a trance state, believing they could travel to the spirit world or take on the power of an animal. They embody a worldview where the boundary between human, animal, and spirit was fluid and interconnected. They remind us that for these ancient peoples, the physical and spiritual worlds were not separate. They were one and the same. And the animals. So many animals, herds of bighorn sheep climbing impossible cliffs, majestic deer and powerful predators. These weren't just illustrations of the local wildlife. These animals were vital for survival, providing food, clothing, and tools. But they were also sacred. They were characters in creation myths, clan symbols, and spirit guides. A carving of a successful hunt might be more than a simple record. It could be a prayer, a ritual to ensure future success, or a story passed down through generations about a legendary hunter. The act of carving the animal onto the rock might have been a way to capture its spirit, to honor it, and to maintain the delicate balance between the human community and the natural world. The challenge for us today is that the creators of this art are long gone. They left no Rosetta Stone to translate their symbols. So, how do we even begin to understand? Archaeologists use a variety of methods. They study the placement of the art. Is it near a village, a water source, or a sacred site? They analyze the tools used to create it. They also turn to the descendants of these ancient cultures. Many indigenous communities today hold oral traditions that have been passed down for centuries, stories that can shed light on the meaning of these ancient symbols. These traditions are invaluable, offering a living connection to the worldview that produced this incredible art. It's a powerful reminder that these are not just artifacts. They are part of a continuous, living culture. Think about the act of creating this art. A person, or a group of people, would choose a specific rock face. Perhaps one that caught the morning light in a special way or had a natural resonance. They would use a harder stone to slowly peck and grind away the dark desert varnish on the rock's surface, revealing the lighter stone underneath. It was a slow, deliberate, and physically demanding process. Each mark was an investment of time and energy. This wasn't casual graffiti. It was important. It was communication meant to last for eternity. And it has. These canyon walls are more than just a backdrop for beautiful art. They are a testament to the universal human need to create, to communicate, and to make our mark on the world. It's the same impulse that drives a painter to a canvas, a writer to a page, or a musician to an instrument. It's the desire to tell our story, to say, I was here. This is what I saw. This is what I believed. Remember me. When you stand before these panels, you're not just an observer. You're a participant in a dialogue that spans millennia. You bring your own experiences, your own curiosity, your own sense of wonder. And in that quiet reflection, the symbols begin to speak. You might not understand their exact original meaning, but you can feel their power. You can sense the sacredness of the place, the importance of the story being told. In our modern world, we are saturated with information and images that flash before our eyes and are gone in an instant. But this ancient art teaches us to slow down. It invites us to look deeply, to think, and to imagine. It connects us to a deeper, slower rhythm of time, a time when stories were bound to the land itself. These petroglyphs and pictographs are a precious, fragile, ineditan. They face threats from weathering, erosion, and, sadly, human vandalism. Their preservation is a critical task, not just for archaeologists, but for all of us. They are a library of humanity's earliest stories, and we are its current guardians. So the next time you find yourself in the great, silent landscapes of the world, keep an eye on the canyon walls. You might just find a message waiting for you, a symbol carved in stone, a story from a time long past, reaching out across the ages to connect with you. It's a quiet conversation with our most ancient ancestors, a reminder that the need to create, to wonder, and to tell our stories is what truly makes us human. Thank you so much for joining me on this journey into the past. If you found this story as fascinating as I do, please consider liking this video and subscribing to the channel for more explorations into the wonders of our world. We'll see you in the next chapter. Welcome back to our journey through the mysteries of Chaco Canyon. Today, in Chapter 14, we're diving deep into the very fabric of its society, asking the big question: how is this incredible civilization organized? Who were the people who envisioned, planned, and built these magnificent structures that have stood the test of time? Let's explore the world of Chaco's builders and priests. When you look at the sheer scale of Chaco, the great houses, the extensive road system, the intricate planning, it becomes immediately clear that this wasn't an egalitarian, free-for-all society. This was organized, highly organized. Archaeologists believe Chacoan society was hierarchical, meaning it had distinct levels of status and power. Think of it like a pyramid. At the top, you had a small, influential elite, and at the bottom, a much larger population of workers and farmers who provided the labor and resources to make it all happen. But what did this hierarchy look like in practice? Evidence suggests a significant division. Some people lived in the monumental great houses, like Pueblo Bonito, while the majority of the population resided in smaller, more modest villages scattered throughout the canyon and the wider San Juan Basin. This separation in living arrangements is one of the strongest indicators of a class-based society. The residents of the great houses likely controlled resources, trade, and, most importantly, sacred knowledge. They were the elite, the 1%ers of their time. And who were these elites? Many researchers theorized they were a priestly class. This wasn't just a society ruled by chiefs or kings in the traditional sense. It was likely a theocracy. A theocracy is a system of government where priests rule in the name of a god or gods. In Chaco, power wasn't just about wealth or military might. It was about a deep, profound connection to the cosmos. The leaders were those who could interpret the movements of the sun, moon, and stars. This brings us to the astronomers of Chaco. We've talked about the sundagger on Fajada Butte and the precise astronomical alignments of the buildings. These aren't happy accidents. They are the work of specialists, people who dedicated their lives to observing the sky. These astronomer priests held the keys to the calendar. They knew when to plant, when to harvest, and, crucially, when to conduct the most important religious ceremonies that kept the world in balance. Their knowledge was power. It allowed them to predict seasonal changes and organize the massive, community-wide rituals that were central to Chacoan life. Imagine the influence you would command if you were seen as the direct intermediary between the people and the heavens. This celestial knowledge was likely a closely guarded secret, passed down through elite family lines. It solidified their authority and justified their privileged position. The great houses weren't just luxury apartments. They were centers of power, ritual, and learning. They were observatories, monasteries, and palaces, all rolled into one. The intricate designs, the keep, and the artifacts found within all point to a complex ceremonial life managed by this priestly class. So, if the priests were at the top, who was at the bottom? The builders, the workers, the farmers, the vast majority of the Chacoan population. These were the people whose hands physically shaped the canyon. They quarried the sandstone, felled the massive timbers from mountains 50 miles away, hauled them without wheeled carts or draft animals, and meticulously assembled these architectural marvels. It was a monumental undertaking, requiring the coordinated labor of thousands of people over many generations. Why would they do it? It's unlikely they were forced into it like slaves. A more plausible theory is that this labor was a form of religious devotion or social obligation. Building and maintaining the great houses was part of a shared cultural and religious project. By contributing their labor, the common people were participating in the ceremonies that ensured the well-being of the entire community, bringing the rains, ensuring good harvests, and maintaining cosmic order. It was a social contract, a sacred duty. The priests provided the spiritual guidance and astronomical knowledge, and the people provided the physical labor to manifest that vision in stone and wood. This system also included a network of specialists. Beyond the farmers and general laborers, there were skilled masons who perfected the unique Chaco stonework. There were craftspeople who created the stunning turquoise jewelry, the intricate baskets, and the beautiful black-on-white pottery that were traded far and wide. Each person had a role to play in this complex social machine. The food grown in outlying farmsteads would flow into the Central Canyon to support the elites and the workers during massive construction or ceremonial events. In return, the Central Canyon provided spiritual leadership and a sense of shared identity. So, when we picture Chaco society, we shouldn't imagine a single, uniform group. We should see a complex, interconnected web of people. At its heart was a powerful group of astronomer priests who used their celestial knowledge to guide a ritual-based society. Their authority was expressed through the construction of the great houses, monumental projects built by the collective labor of a devoted populace. It was a society where science and spirituality were one and the same, where your place in the cosmos was reflected in your place on Earth, and where the movements of the sun and stars dictated the rhythm of life itself. This model of a theocratic society, guided by celestial knowledge and ritual, remains one of the most compelling explanations for how Chaco was organized. It accounts for the monumental architecture, the astronomical alignments, and the social stratification we see in the archaeological record. It was a society of builders and priests, working together to create a sacred landscape here in the heart of the Southwest. Thank you so much for joining me on this exploration of Chaco society. The story is far from over, and there are still so many questions to answer. If you're enjoying this series, please consider liking this video and subscribing to the channel so you don't miss our next chapter. We'll see you next time. Imagine a city, not of steel and glass, but of sun-baked stone, nestled in the heart of a vast canyon. For centuries, this was Chaco, a vibrant hub of culture, trade, and ceremony. Its great houses stood as monuments to human ingenuity, their walls echoing with the sounds of a thriving civilization. But then, as the 12th century drew to a close, a profound silence began to fall over the canyon. The bustling plazas grew quiet, the well-trodden paths became empty, and the great houses started their long, slow return to the earth. This is the story of the Great Migration, the beginning of the end for the Chaco world as we know it. What could compel an entire society to abandon its ancestral home, to walk away from monumental structures that took generations to build? The answer, like Chaco itself, is complex and layered. Archaeologists and historians have pieced together a compelling narrative from the silent clues left behind in the soil and stone. It's a story of environmental change, social pressure, and perhaps a fundamental shift in the way people saw their world and their place within it. Let's start with the most tangible suspect: the climate. Tree ring data, a remarkable natural archive, tells us a story of prolonged and severe drought hitting the region in the mid-1100s. Imagine the life-giving summer rains becoming less and less reliable. The corn, beans, and squash that sustained thousands of people would have withered in the fields. The springs and streams that quenched their thirst would have dwindled to a trickle. For a society so intricately tied to the rhythms of the agricultural calendar, this would have been catastrophic. The great storage rooms, once overflowing with surplus harvests, would have slowly emptied. Hunger, a specter they had managed to keep at bay for centuries, would have begun to haunt the canyon. The strain wasn't just on the food supply. Think about the resources needed to build and maintain Chaco. Tens of thousands of massive timber beams, each weighing hundreds of pounds, were hauled from forests over 50 miles away. As the population grew, the demand for firewood, construction materials, and wild game would have intensified. Over time, the landscape immediately surrounding the canyon would have been stripped bare. Every tree cut, every animal hunted, meant traveling further and further afield, expending more and more energy for diminishing returns. The very success of Chaco may have sowed the seeds of its own decline by creating an environment that could no longer support its population. It was a classic case of resource strain, a scenario that has played out time and again throughout human history. The canyon that had once been a bountiful oasis was becoming an ecological desert. But the story doesn't end with just drought and deforestation. We have to look deeper into the hearts and minds of the Chacoan people themselves. What if the migration wasn't just about empty stomachs, but also about a crisis of faith? The leaders and priests of Chaco held immense power, a power likely tied to their ability to mediate with the supernatural world. To ensure the rains came, the crops grew, and the community prospered. Their authority was reinforced by the elaborate ceremonies held in the great kivas and the astronomical alignments built into the architecture itself. Now, imagine years of relentless drought. The rituals are performed, the prayers are offered, but the sky remains stubbornly clear. The sun beats down, and the earth cracks. How long before the people begin to question the efficacy of their leaders? How long before they wonder if the spiritual foundation of their world is crumbling? This loss of faith could have been a powerful catalyst for change. The social contract that held the complex Chacan society together may have begun to fray. Perhaps new ideologies or religious movements emerged, promising a different path, a new way of life in a new land. The decision to leave may have been as much a spiritual journey as a physical one, a search for a new spiritual center where the balance between humanity and the cosmos could be restored. We also see hints of internal conflict and social tension in the archaeological record. Some later construction shows more defensive features, suggesting a growing sense of insecurity. As resources dwindled, competition would have intensified, both within Chaco and with outside groups. The intricate system of trade and tribute that funneled goods into the canyon might have broken down. The social hierarchy that placed an elite class at the top may have become unsustainable when the system could no longer provide for everyone at the bottom. The unity that built the great houses may have dissolved into factionalism and dissent. So, the people began to leave. It likely wasn't a single, dramatic event, but a gradual exodus over decades. Families, clans, and entire communities would have packed their belongings and set out in different directions. They didn't simply vanish. They moved on carrying their knowledge, their traditions, and their DNA with them. They migrated north, south, and east, establishing new communities and integrating with existing ones. The ancestors of many modern Pueblo peoples, such as the Hopi, Zuni, and the Rio Grande Pueblos, trace their lineage directly back to Chaco. For them, it is not a lost city, but a sacred ancestral homeland, a place of origin. Their oral histories often speak of this period of migration, framing it not as a collapse, but as a divinely ordained journey to a new destination. As the last inhabitants departed, an era came to a close. The wind whistled through the empty doorways of Pueblo Bonito. The sun cast long shadows across the silent plaza of Chetroquetl. The once bustling canyon, the center of a vibrant world, fell quiet. The silence that descended was profound, a soft, melancholy note marking the end of a grand chapter in human history. Yet, it wasn't a final ending. The story of the Chaco people continued, transformed and dispersed across the landscape. The canyon itself became a place of memory, a monumental testament to a time of extraordinary achievement, a silent reminder of the enduring power of human resilience and the inevitable currents of change. Thank you so much for joining me on this journey back in time. The story of Chaco is a powerful reminder of how interconnected we are with our environment and how societies adapt and change. If you found this chapter of history as fascinating as I do, please give this video a like and subscribe to the channel for more deep dives into the past. We have so many more stories to uncover together. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one. Start a video. Welcome back, everyone. If you've been following our journey through the rise and fall of the great Chaco civilization, you might be thinking the story ends with the abandonment of the great houses around 1150 CE. But that couldn't be further from the truth. The end of Chaco Canyon as a central hub wasn't an ending. It was a diaspora, a scattering of seeds that would take root and blossom in new and fascinating ways across the American Southwest. Today, we're following those echoes. This is the story of what came next. Imagine the scene. The grand plazas of Pueblo Bonito are quiet. The kivas, once centers of ceremony, stand empty. But the people, the bearers of a rich cultural tradition, are on the move. They didn't just vanish. They migrated, carrying with them the knowledge, beliefs, and architectural genius that had defined Chaco for centuries. Their journey took them north, south, and east, creating new communities that became the next chapters in the Ancestral Puebloan story. Our first stop on this journey is about 100 miles north, to a place of breathtaking beauty, Mesa Verde, tucked into the dramatic cliffs of what is now southwestern Colorado. The people of Mesa Verde created a world of their own. While communities existed here before the Chacon migration, the influx of new people and ideas in the late 11th and 12th centuries sparked a remarkable transformation. Suddenly, we see Chacon-style great houses appearing on the mesa top structures like Farview House, which shares striking similarities with its southern cousins. These weren't just copies, they were adaptations. The builders at Mesa Verde took the Chacon blueprint and tailored it to their own environment and needs. But the most iconic structures at Mesa Verde are, of course, the cliff dwellings. Masterpieces like Cliff Palace and Balcony House were built primarily in the 13th century, a little after Chaco's peak. While the style is distinct, you can see the Chacon legacy woven into their very stones, the meticulous masonry, the T-shaped doorways, the ceremonial kivas integrated into the village plantees are all echoes of Chaco. It is as if the migrants brought their architectural DNA and combined it with local innovations to create something entirely new and perfectly suited to a life lived between earth and sky. These cliff dwellings represent a shift in settlement patterns, a move towards more defensive and communal living, perhaps in response to the same environmental and social pressures that contributed to Chaco's decline. Leaving the cliffs of Mesa Verde, our journey takes us to another incredible site, one with a somewhat misleading name: Aztec Ruins. Located in northwestern New Mexico, not far from Chaco Canyon itself. This complex was mistakenly named by early American settlers, who thought it was built by the Aztecs of Mexico. We now know it was a major post-Chacon center, a direct and powerful heir to the Chacon legacy. In fact, Aztec Ruins is so Chacon in its style that for a long time, archaeologists believed it was simply a Chacon colony. The west ruin at Aztec is a classic D-shaped great house, containing over 400 rooms and a massive great kiva. It feels like a direct transplant from Chaco Canyon. The construction, the layout, the sheer scale of it all scream Chaco. This wasn't just an echo, it was a roar. For a time, in the late 1100s and early 1200s, Aztec Ruins became a new regional center, picking up the mantle that Chaco had laid down. People gathered here, traded here, and worshipped here. Archaeologists have even reconstructed the Great Kiva at Aztec, and stepping inside it today feels like stepping back 900 years, connecting you directly to the spiritual heart of this vibrant community. It's a powerful testament to the resilience and adaptability of the culture. But the influence didn't stop at Mesa Verde or Aztec Ruins. Think of it like a ripple effect. Smaller communities throughout the San Juan Basin and beyond began to adopt Chacon traits. We see it in pottery styles, where the classic black-on-white designs evolved but kept a recognizable Chacon flair. We see it in the spread of religious societies and ceremonial practices. The Macao feathers and copper bells, once funneled through Chaco's trade network, continued to be important symbols of status and spiritual power in these new centers. The spirit of Chaco was being reinterpreted and reinvented across a vast landscape. This period of migration and reorganization, from roughly 1150 to 1300 CE, was a dynamic time of change and adaptation. It's a crucial reminder that culture is not static. It's a living, breathing thing that responds to its environment. The Ancestral Puebloans didn't just try to replicate, they took its best ideas and wove them into the fabric of their new homes, creating a rich and varied tapestry of communities. Each site, from the Salmon Ruins to the smaller outliers, tells a unique story of this cultural evolution. The art from this period is particularly telling. While maintaining the geometric precision of Chacon pottery, new local styles emerged. In the Mesa Verde region, potters created mugs with expressive designs and beautifully crafted bowls. The imagery on these vessels and on the kiva murals that have been discovered provides a window into their changing worldview. We see figures and symbols that hint at the emergence of new deities and belief systems, what many scholars associate with the rise of the Katsina religion, which would become central to modern Pueblo life. This religious transformation was perhaps the most profound legacy of the post-Chaco era, a spiritual evolution born from a time of immense social and environmental upheaval. So, What does this all mean? It means the story of Chaco is not a tragedy of collapse, but a story of transformation. The people who built the great houses of Chaco Canyon were innovators and survivors. When their world changed, they changed with it. They carried their culture with them, not as a relic of the past, but as a living guide for the future. The spectacular cliff dwellings of Mesa Verde, the grand public buildings of Aztec ruins, and the countless other sites scattered across the Southwest are not monuments to a lost civilization. They are monuments to its enduring legacy. The spirit of Chaco lives on today in the modern Pueblo. Peoples of New Mexico and Arizona, including the Hopi, Zuni, and the Rio Grande Pueblos. They are the direct descendants of the people who built these ancient sites. Their oral traditions, ceremonies, and languages hold the keys to understanding this incredible history. For them, Chaco Canyon, Mesa Verde, and the other sites are not ruins. They are ancestral homes, sacred places that are still very much alive with the spirits of their ancestors. Listening to their voices is essential to truly understanding this deep and powerful story. Thank you so much for joining me on this journey through the echoes of Chaco. It's a powerful reminder that even when great centers fall, the human spirit endures, adapts, and creates anew. If you found this chapter of history as fascinating as I do, please hit that like button, and be sure to subscribe and turn on notifications so you don't miss our next video. We love reading your comments and questions, so please share your thoughts below. Until next time, keep exploring. Welcome back to our journey through time. Today, we delve into a chapter of rediscovery, a story of how a lost world was found again. Not by chance, but by the relentless curiosity of those who came after. Imagine, centuries have passed. The great cities and monuments we've explored have vanished, swallowed by jungles and buried by the sands of time. The whispers of their existence have faded into myth. But history, as we know, has a way of resurfacing. Our story of rediscovery begins with the Spanish explorers as they pushed deeper into the Americas, driven by ambition and the quest for new lands. They began to stumble upon things that defied their understanding. Picture a small band of conquistadors hacking their way through dense, unfamiliar jungle. Suddenly, the trees part, and before them rises a stone pyramid, its steps choked with vines, its carvings depicting gods and kings they've never seen. These weren't just primitive huts. They were the bones of a colossal civilization. Initial reports sent back to Europe were met with a mix of awe and disbelief. Who could have built such structures? These early encounters were often brief and driven by the search for gold, not knowledge. The explorers noted the strange mounds and crumbling walls, sometimes renaming them, sometimes attributing them to legendary figures from their own culture. Unable to grasp the true scale of what they had found, they were like men walking through a library, seeing only the bindings of the books without being able to read the stories inside. It wasn't until the 18th and 19th centuries that a more systematic, scientific curiosity began to take hold. Settlers and amateur archaeologists, men and women with a passion for the past, started to conduct the first real surveys. Think of figures like John Lloyd Stevens and who journeyed through Central America in the 1840s. Stevens wrote with breathless astonishment, while Catherwood, an incredibly talented artist, meticulously drew the ruins as they were. His detailed illustrations, filled with crumbling reliefs and towering stele half buried in the earth, were a revelation to the Western world. For the first time, people saw not just random piles of stone, but intricate art, complex writing systems, and architectural genius. These weren't just ruins. They were the fingerprints of a sophisticated society. Early excavations were often crude by today's standards. They were treasure hunts as much as they were scientific endeavors. But with every artifact unearthed, a piece of pottery, a jade mask, a carved lintel, the picture grew clearer. The astonishment was palpable. This forgotten civilization had advanced mathematics, a precise calendar, and a deep understanding of astronomy. Imagine the moment an archaeologist first deciphered a piece of their hieroglyphic writing. It was like hearing a voice speak after 1,000 years of silence. The names of kings and queens, the dates of battles, the rituals of their religion, it all came flooding back. The realization dawned that this wasn't a single, monolithic empire, but a complex web of city-states, each with its own history, its own rulers, and its own destiny. They had trade networks that spanned vast distances, political alliances that shifted like the jungle winds, and an artistic tradition as rich as any in the ancient world. The complexity was staggering. Their urban planning, with causeways connecting sacred precincts to residential areas, showed a society that was highly organized. Their agricultural techniques, which allowed them to sustain massive populations in challenging environments, spoke of incredible ingenuity. For so long, the prevailing view had been one of condescension, but the evidence was undeniable. Here was a civilization that had risen, flourished, and fallen, all on its own terms, developing unique solutions to the universal challenges of human existence. Every new excavation brought fresh surprises. Deep within a pyramid, a royal tomb, untouched for centuries, would be discovered. Inside, the remains of a ruler, adorned with jade and shells, surrounded by offerings meant to accompany them into the afterlife. These discoveries were more than just academic. They were deeply human. They connected the modern world to these ancient people, reminding us that they too loved, fought, mourned, and reached for the heavens. The rediscovery wasn't just about finding buildings. It was about finding people. The astonishment also came from understanding their worldview. Their art and architecture were infused with a profound spirituality. Every structure was aligned with celestial events. Every carving told a story from their rich mythology. They saw the cosmos and the world around them, from the jaguar that prowled the jungle floor to the stars that wheeled overhead. To uncover their cities was to uncover a completely different way of seeing and being in the world, a perspective that had been lost for generations. This process of rediscovery is ongoing. Even today, new sites are being found using technologies like LiDAR, which can peel back the jungle canopy from the air to reveal the outlines of ancient settlements hidden beneath. We are still piecing together the puzzle, still marveling at the complexity and resilience of this forgotten civilization. The astonishment felt by those first Spanish explorers has not faded. It has only deepened with each new layer of understanding. It's a powerful reminder that history is not a closed book, but a living landscape, with lost worlds still waiting to be rediscovered by modern eyes. Thank you so much for joining us on this incredible chapter of discovery. The story of humanity is filled with such moments of loss and rediscovery, and it's a privilege to share them with you. If you found this journey as fascinating as I did, please hit that like button and subscribe to the channel for more adventures into the past. Don't forget to ring the notification bell so you won't miss our next episode. Until then, keep exploring. Welcome back to our journey through the heart of the ancient world. In our final chapter, we turn our gaze from the distant past to the present and future of Chaco Canyon. This isn't just a story of stones and sand, but a living narrative of preservation, respect, and collaboration. How do we protect such a monumental and fragile legacy in the 21st century? For centuries after its abandonment, Chaco lay largely undisturbed, its gray houses sleeping under the high desert sun. But as the American West was settled, the ruins faced new threats. Early explorers and settlers, struck by the grandeur of the site, often collected artifacts indiscriminately. The very act of discovery posed a risk. It became clear that without a concerted effort, Chaco's story could be lost forever. The first major step toward protection came in 1907, just 1 year after the landmark Antiquities Act was passed. President Theodore Roosevelt, a passionate conservationist, declared Chaco Canyon a national monument. This designation was a critical turning point. It brought the ruins under federal protection, halting the rampant looting and uncontrolled excavation that had threatened to erase its history. This act recognized Chaco not merely as a collection of old buildings, but as a site of national significance, a treasure belonging to all Americans, and most importantly, to the descendants of its builders. However, creating a monument was just the beginning. The early years were a struggle. With limited funding and a remote location, protecting Chaco was a monumental task in itself. Early park rangers were rugged pioneers, often working in isolation to patrol the vast landscape, stabilize crumbling walls with rudimentary techniques, and educate the few visitors who braved the difficult journey. Their dedication laid the groundwork for everything that followed, transforming a remote archaeological site into a place of learning and reverence. Over the decades, our understanding of Chaco grew, and so did the recognition of its immense cultural and scientific value. The initial monument boundaries were expanded several times to include more of the surrounding Chacoan landscape, including outlying great houses and the sacred road system. This culminated in 1980, when the site was redesignated and expanded to become Chaco Culture National Historical Park. This wasn't just a name change. It signified a shift in perspective. The focus moved from simply preserving the central canyon to protecting the entire cultural landscape there. Interconnected system of communities, roads, and sacred sites that define the Chacoan world. Then, in 1987, Chaco received one of the highest honors an historic site can achieve. It was designated a UNESCO World Heritage Site. This international recognition placed Chaco alongside wonders like the pyramids of Egypt and the Great Wall of China. It acknowledged that Chaco's story isn't just American history. It's a vital part of our shared human heritage, offering profound insights into social organization, architecture, and astronomy. But even with these layers of protection, the challenges facing Chaco today are more complex than ever. The first and most visible challenge is the fragility of the ruins themselves. These thousand-year-old structures, built with sandstone and mud mortar, are in a constant battle with the elements. The intense sun, freezing winters, and monsoon rains of the high desert all take their toll. Wind and water erosion relentlessly wear away at the masonry. A single, powerful storm can cause significant damage to walls that have stood for a millennium. Preservation experts at the park are engaged in a constant, delicate dance with nature. They used advanced techniques to monitor the stability of the walls, sometimes employing lasers and drones to detect minute shifts and cracks invisible to the naked eye. When intervention is necessary, it's done with the utmost care. Modern mortars are carefully designed to be weaker than the original stone, ensuring that if something has to give, it's the replaceable mortar, not the irreplaceable ancient masonry. The goal is not to rebuild, but to stabilize to slow the inevitable process of decay and allow these structures to age gracefully. Every repair is a painstaking process, guided by the principle of doing as little as possible, but as much as is necessary. Another modern threat comes from our own footsteps. Chaco receives tens of thousands of visitors each year. While this is wonderful for education, the collective impact of foot traffic can be immense. Soil compacts fragile floors wear down, and the simple act of touching a wall can transfer oils and moisture, accelerating erosion over time. The Park Service manages this by creating designated trails, closing off particularly fragile areas, and constantly educating visitors about how to explore the site respectfully. It is a delicate balance, providing access while ensuring that our love for Chaco doesn't inadvertently harm it. Perhaps the most significant challenge, however, extends beyond the park's boundaries. The greater Chacoan landscape, a sprawling area of 10,000 square miles, is rich in natural resources, particularly oil and gas. In recent years, the San Juan Basin has become a hotspot for energy development. The prospect of drilling, fracking, and the associated infrastructure roads, pipelines, and wells poses a profound threat to the integrity of the sacred landscape. For descendant communities, this is not just an environmental issue, it is a spiritual one. The landscape surrounding Chaco is not empty. It is filled with sacred places, ancestral footprints, and a spiritual energy that connects them to their past. The noise, light pollution, and ground disturbance from industrial activity threaten to sever this sacred connection. Light pollution from drilling sites can obscure the stars, disrupting the pristine dark skies that were so essential to Chacoan astronomy ceremoniand, which make the park an international dark sky park today. This is where the most important part of Chaco's modern story unfolds: collaboration. The National Park Service no longer acts as the sole steward of Chaco. Today, it works in close partnership with more than 24 affiliated Native American tribes, including the Pueblo peoples of New Mexico, the Hopi, and the Navajo Nation. These descendant communities are not just stakeholders. They are the spiritual and cultural heirs of Chaco. Their oral histories, traditions, and deep knowledge of the landscape provide an essential context that archaeology alone cannot. This collaboration is active and ongoing. Tribal leaders and cultural experts consult with park managers on everything from the interpretation of sites to preservation techniques. They lead ceremonies within the park, revitalizing the spiritual life of the great houses. Their voices have been instrumental in advocating for greater protection of the surrounding landscape. The fight to establish a buffer zone around the park, limiting oil and gas development in the immediate vicinity, is a direct result of this powerful alliance between tribes, preservation groups, and government agencies. This ongoing dialogue is reshaping our very understanding of preservation. It's a shift from a purely scientific, archaeological approach to a more holistic, humanistic one. It acknowledges that Chaco is not a dead ruin to be studied, but a living, breathing place with enduring importance. The stories told by tribal elders are now woven into the park's official narrative, providing visitors with a richer, more complete picture of what Chaco was and what it continues to be. The preservation of Chaco is a testament to the idea that our past is not something to be locked away behind glass. It is a source of wisdom, identity, and inspiration that must be actively cared for. It requires the precision of science, the passion of advocates, and the profound wisdom of cultural tradition. The future of Chaco depends on all of us, on our willingness to listen, to learn, and to act as responsible stewards of this incredible world heritage. Thank you for joining me on this incredible journey through the Chaco world. From the first basket makers to the master architects and astronomers, and now to the dedicated preservationists and tribal descendants, the story of Chaco is a powerful reminder of human ingenuity, resilience, and the enduring connection between people and place. If you enjoyed this series, please consider liking this video and subscribing to our channel for more deep dives into the fascinating stories of our shared past. Your support helps us continue to bring these histories to light. Thank you for watching. For many, Chaco Canyon is a collection of ancient ruins, a ghost town frozen in time. But what if I told you that, for some, this place is not a relic of the past, but a living, breathing entity? What if the voices of those who built these magnificent structures still echo through these canyons? Today, we're not just looking at stones and mortars. We're stepping into a world where the past is present, where ancestors speak to their descendants. This is Chaco Canyon, through the eyes of the Pueblo people, for whom this is not a ruin, but a sacred, living homeland. Welcome to Chapter 19 of our journey, listening to the voices of the ancestors. To understand Chaco from a modern Native American perspective, we must first shift our own. Archaeologists and historians often ask what happened, and why did they leave? They study pot shards, tree rings, and building alignments to piece together a story of collapse. But for the descendants of the Chaconsta peoples, of Hopi, Zuni, and the Rio Grande Pueblos, more important questions are, who were they? And what did they teach us? The story isn't about an ending. It's about a journey, a migration that continues to this day. According to oral traditions passed down through countless generations, the people of Chaco didn't just disappear. They migrated. This wasn't a panicked flight from drought or war, but a purposeful, spiritual journey, a fulfillment of a prophecy. The stories tell of clans moving outward from Chaco, carrying with them the knowledge, ceremonies, and sacred responsibilities that were nurtured here. Each Pueblo community today holds a piece of the Chacan legacy. They see the great houses not as abandoned cities, but as nodes in a vast spiritual network, places their ancestors were instructed to build, inhabit for a time, and then move on from, leaving their spiritual essence embedded in the land. Imagine a Taiwa elder standing in the great kiva at Casa Rinconada. To an outsider, it's a remarkable feat of ancient engineering. To the elder, it is a living model of the cosmos. Every niche, every entryway, every post hole corresponds to sacred directions, celestial events, and their people's origin stories. When they look at the sun dagger petroglyph on Fajada Butte, they don't just see a clever solar calendar. They see a sacred text, a confirmation of the cosmic order that governs their ceremonial life. The movements of the sun and moon across these ancient markers are not just astronomical curiosities. They are signals that guide the timing of planting, harvesting, and essential ceremonies that maintain balance in the world. This connection isn't just a memory. It's an active, ongoing relationship. Throughout the year, Pueblo people make pilgrimages back to Chaco. They come not as tourists, but as participants in a continuous tradition. They walk the ancient roads their ancestors traveled, leaving offerings of cornmeal and turquoise, speaking to the spirits that reside here, and conducting ceremonies that echo those performed 1,000 years ago. For them, the Katsinas, or spiritual beings, that visited their ancestors in the Kivasir, still travel the spiritual pathways connecting Chaco to their modern villages. The canyon is a place to renew spiritual power, to seek guidance, and to honor the covenant made with the land and the cosmos. This perspective fundamentally changes how we see Chaco. The term ruin itself is problematic. It implies decay, failure, and finality. But from the Pueblo viewpoint, these structures are dormant, not dead. They are like elders resting, holding immense knowledge and power. The National Park Service has increasingly recognized this, working alongside tribal consultants to manage the park in a way that respects its sacredness. This involves protecting not just the physical structures, but the intangible, spiritual landscape, the soundscapes, and the sacred places that may not have any structures on them at all. This collaboration has brought new insights. For example, oral traditions often speak of a vast road system connecting Chaco to other communities. For a long time, archaeologists were skeptical of the scale described in these stories. But with the advent of remote sensing technology, we have confirmed that these oral histories were incredibly accurate. Hundreds of miles of ancient roads, perfectly straight, radiate from Chaco, connecting it to a landscape far larger than we ever imagined. The stories were true all along. The fight to protect Greater Chaco is another chapter in this living story. The landscape surrounding the national park is rich in oil and gas, and the threat of drilling and fracking looms large. For the Pueblo people and the neighboring Dine Navajo Nation, this isn't just an environmental issue. It's a desecration. Placing an oil well near a sacred spring or an ancient shrine is like drilling into the walls of a cathedral. It disrupts the spiritual fabric of the land, silences the voices of the ancestors, and severs the connection that is so vital to their cultural survival. The ongoing advocacy to protect this wider landscape is a modern expression of the same stewardship their ancestors practiced for centuries. It's a fight to ensure that future generations can also come here to listen, to learn, and to feel the enduring presence of those who came before. So, when we walk through Chaco Canyon, let's try to see it with new eyes and listen with new ears. Let's look beyond the impressive architecture and the archaeological mysteries. Let's imagine the scent of burning juniper, the sound of drums echoing from a kiva, and the feel of a community connected not just to each other, but to the stars above and the earth below. The people of Chaco didn't vanish. They evolved. Their journey continues in the dances, the songs, the prayers, and the living cultures of the Pueblo people today. The voices of the ancestors are not silent. They are waiting for us to learn how to listen. And in listening, we find that Chaco is not a story of a lost civilization, but a testament to the incredible resilience and endurance of a people who still call this sacred place home. Thank you so much for joining me on this deeper dive into the spirit of Chaco Canyon. If this perspective resonated with you, please hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and share your thoughts in the comments below. Your support helps us continue to explore these incredible stories. Until next time, keep exploring. Here we are at the end of our journey, but also, in a way, right back at the beginning. Stand with me just for a moment. In the vast, silent expanse of Chaco Canyon, feel the day's heat slowly surrender to the cool desert night. The air grows still, carrying whispers of a time long past. Look up. One by one, the stars begin to emerge, piercing the deep indigo veil above. First Venus, a steadfast beacon in the twilight. Then the brighter constellations, sketching their familiar patterns across the celestial dome. This is the same sky, the very same stars that glittered over this canyon 1,000 years ago. The same cosmic clock that the ancestral Puebloans watched, night after night, from these very mesas and kiva. Imagine, Italiano. 1,000 years ago, another person stood right where we are, their head tilted back, their eyes filled with the same awe, the same wonder. They didn't have our telescopes or our satellites, but their connection to the sky was perhaps even deeper, more essential. The stars were their calendar, their compass, their storybook. The sun's journey across the sky, marked by the ingenious windows and doorways of their great houses. dictated the rhythms of their lives: when to plant, when to harvest, when to celebrate. The sun dagger, that brilliant spear of light piercing the heart of the spiral petroglyph on Fajada Butte, wasn't just an astronomical event. It was a sacred conversation between the earth and the heavens, a confirmation that the world was in balance, that the cosmos was orderly and benevolent. The moon's 18-year cycle, tracked with painstaking precision, wasn't just data. It was a story of cosmic ebb and flow, a dance of celestial bodies that resonated in their own ceremonies and social structures. Tonight, the silence here is not empty. It's filled with the echoes of those ancient observers. The wind, sighing through the ruins of Pueblo Bonito, seems to carry the murmurs of their language, the soft shuffle of yucca fiber sandals on stone, the distant beat of a ceremonial drum. We are separated by a gulf of centuries, by a chasm of cultural and technological change, yet we are profoundly connected by this shared experience. This simple, powerful act of looking up at the night sky bridges the immense gap of time. The light from some of these stars began its journey to Earth long before these great houses were even conceived. It traveled through the void, past supernova and nebulae, to our Uribe era, tonight, to fall on our faces, just as it fell on theirs. In that shared light, we find a thread of continuity that runs through all of human history. We come to places like Chaco, not just to see ruins of stone and mortar, but to feel this connection. We seek to understand not just how they lived, but asterisk, what did they think about as they watched the Milky Way arc across the sky like a great spiritual river? What stories did they tell their children about the constellations we now call Orion or the Pleiades? Did they feel small and insignificant under this infinite canopy, or did they feel an immense sense of belonging, a feeling of being part of something vast and eternal? I believe it was the latter. Their architecture, their art, their entire civilization was aligned with the cosmos. They didn't see themselves as separate from the universe. They were an integral part of it. Their world was a reflection of the sky, and the sky was a map of their spiritual landscape. This perspective is something we have, in many ways, lost. Our modern lives are so often disconnected from these natural rhythms. We live under the glare of city lights that wash out the stars, our days governed by digital clocks rather than the sun's arc. We have accumulated vast knowledge about the universe we know, the chemical composition of distant stars, the physics of black holes, but have we lost the asterisk feeling asterisk of the cosmos? The sense of wonder, of reverence, that our ancestors knew so intimately. But here, in the desert silence, it's possible to reclaim a piece of that. As your eyes adjust to the darkness, the sky reveals its true, breathtaking glory. The Milky Way is no longer a faint smudge, but a brilliant, textured river of light, dense with countless suns. Meteors, the shooting stars of ancient lore, streak across the blackness in fleeting moments of fiery brilliance. The universe feels alive, dynamic, and overwhelmingly beautiful. It's a humbling experience. It forces a shift in perspective. Our own concerns, our deadlines, our anxieties, they all seem to shrink in the face of this cosmic grandeur. We are reminded that our lives are but a brief flicker in the grand sweep of time. But rather than being a dispiriting thought, there is a profound comfort in it. It connects us to every human who has ever lived and marveled at this same sight. We are part of a long, unbroken chain of stargazers. The stones of Chaco hold the memory of a people who lived in deep communion with the universe. And the stars, in their silent, unwavering procession, hold the memory of us all. They have watched civilizations rise and fall. They have witnessed our greatest triumphs and our deepest sorrows, and they will continue to shine long after we and our own civilization are gone. Under these same stars, we find a common ground, a shared heritage that transcends culture, language, and time. We are all inhabitants of this small, precious world, spinning through an impossibly vast and beautiful universe. We are all, in the end, children of the cosmos, looking up from our tiny corner of space, filled with questions, with hope, and with a timeless sense of wonder. The people of Chaco knew this, and tonight, here in the heart of their ancient world, we can know it too. Thank you for joining me on this incredible journey through time and space. If these stories of connection and wonder resonate with you, please consider liking this video and subscribing to the channel. There are always more stars to explore together. Until next time, keep looking up.